Call to order meeting of the Finance Committee for Thursday, November 7, 2024. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank everyone at home for watching. A couple quick announcements, basically the same announcements I make every time. If you can silence your phones, there should be a little switch on the side possibly. That would be great. The other thing is this meeting is being shown live on SMAC and being recorded for future internet viewing. And with that, we will get started. We have tonight request for
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Before we start the meeting, may I have a few moments?
Absolutely, Chet.
Okay. This in regards to the way we run our meetings. Okay. All the years I've been on the Finance Committee, I've never seen the decorum that we have lately. And I'm really upset with it. I think we're losing our decorum. We should reestablish a professional nature to the committee. And I think that we should have members raise their hands and wait to be recognized by chair, not start talking. Members should stick to the articles and not go off on tangents. Outbursts from the general public should not be tolerated. Committee needs to keep meetings civil as we move forward. And as far as emails, I think all emails should go to the chair, and then he'll send them to the appropriate departments and give back. I know we all want our answers answered quickly, like yesterday, but I think we should give the chair the courtesy of giving him the emails to send out. And lastly, I think the chair should use his power with the gavel to control the meetings. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Chet. Thank you very much for the comments. Yes, I agree with you. Another announcement I'd like to make, thank you again for that, Chet. I'd like to introduce a new member here. We have Ian Turlin for Precinct 2, representing Precinct 2. So thanks for joining us, Ian. I'm sure you're going to have a great time here. Okay, on the agenda, request for transfer from Finance Committee Reserve in the amount of $24,000 from Finance Committee Reserve to Town IT Purchase of Services Expense for Town and School IT Department. Do we have someone that would like to present this?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Trish Shropshire, the Town IT Director.
Just make sure you get close to the mic, speak loud and clear
sorry.
so everyone here can hear you and everyone at home.
Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. Hello. I'm going to start over. Good evening, Trish Shropshire. I'm the IT Director on the town side.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Fippen. I am the IT Director on the school side.
Would you like to present the request for transfer?
Yeah, this would be a transfer for a UPS that failed. It was it was just kind of died, and it wasn't forecasted for. Nobody would have known that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Unforeseen.
Right, and it's a power supply for our network environment over at the school. It was unforeseen, unbudgeted item. The last time we purchased one was with the high school, correct, Tony?
Yep, 2020.
So it was included with that project. Unfortunately, we don't have it budgeted in our budgets, and we will budget for the next one, but it is an unforeseen, unbudgeted item that we need to continue with the operations on both sides, the school and the town.
All right, thank you very much for that. This is a power supply. The other one died, and we're now running on the backup. Is that correct?
We had redundancy, and one of them failed, completely failed, heart failure. And so we're on one right now that was installed in 2020. And if that were to go, that's on borrowed time as well, another year, if lucky. If that one goes, we lose network throughout the whole town.
All right, thank you for that. Laura, sorry, Carolyn?
Hello? Okay. Are these like backups, so like the network is generally plugged in, but if the power goes out, these would step up to keep the network going?
Yeah, so basically they're protecting it from surges. Just in case if the generator went to turn on, you would have about 35 minutes to 40 minutes of running until you get the generator up. As of right now, we have redundancy, but I mean, we should have redundancy once failed.
Right.
These have big lead batteries in them. They also have like the special controllers and capacitors that, and once completely gone. And the new technology rolls out in December, and where it's going to be probably about $15,000 increase.
Okay, thank you.
For lithium-ion batteries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Carolyn. Do we have any other questions? Joel, do you have a question?
Yeah, one or two. Is this located in the MDF room over at the high school?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, and this is backup for both the school and the town?
Correct. It's infrastructure.
So
yes.
we're only buying one backup, or we're buying two? I couldn't quite figure it out.
We have one that's currently working in the other.
Oh, what
one's
are we
field.
buying?
One.
Just one?
Yep.
Okay, and is that going to be shared between the town and the school, or?
As of right now, it's shared services.
Shared services?
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, my other question is for Biz, but she's not here, so I won't ask you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Joel. Arnie, do you have a question on this?
Sorry. What is the expected life of these batteries? On average, if you buy it new, when do you expect to replace it?
They're about 5 years.
Is there a 5-year plan to replace these through maintenance?
We're going to get them onto capital plan or budget them.
For this upcoming season?
We'll have to probably get it onto the budgets or, yeah.
We're definitely going to budget for the next one, so we won't
So
have to
every
do this
5
again.
years, you budget every 5 years for a new one, or, excuse me,
Yeah.
for one new one or two?
We'll do one so we can swap out. So this one here will be new, so hopefully it lasts us the 5 years. And the other one, we have to check on the date of it, but we'll budget it for next year, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa?
Hi. Okay, so I have a few questions here. So I'm just trying to ask, so I know that the school budget had a 7.1% increase in their budget last year. And I'm looking at an email that was sent to our finance director through this finance. And there's multiple maintenance accounts, by department. And I'm hearing you say that it wasn't in the budget. And I see the question is asked, what's remaining in each of these three accounts that is unencumbered? The Heidi Perkins, the school business manager, I think is her title. I could be wrong. She gave reasons, and answered a lot of other questions, but didn't say currently in each of those accounts what is unencumbered. And the reason I ask that is because I personally don't want to get in the habit as a finance committee member of funding these things. I think these things should go before town meeting, and we're about to have one. And I do understand the urgency with which this needs to be done. But as long as there's unencumbered amounts in the budget, I really feel like this should be brought to town meeting to make these type of decisions. And I'm just going to leave that there for right now.
Thank you for that, Lisa. Trish, was this unforeseen?
Yep, unforeseen and unbudgeted item.
Okay.
And we don't like to come in front of this committee. As a
I know
matter of
that.
fact, I never like to come in front of this committee. So I promise we'll have it budgeted for the future, and this won't be an issue. But this is important. We run Munis off of there. I mean, I have an environment over at the police station, but all of our other hardware is with the high school. So the town pays for the software side, and so we will make sure that it is budgeted in the future.
Thank you very much for that, Trish.
Just as a follow-up to that, please know I understand it's important. My point is, if there's money in the maintenance budgets, it should come out of that before it comes to us, the Finance Committee, so that it can go through town meetings. I do know it's important.
Thank you for that, Lisa.
Understandable. We're here as IT directors having an unforeseen issue, and we don't have we have this item that's unbudgeted, but will be in the future. We really need it. So if you guys could vote it in, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much for that, Trish. John, did you have a question or no? Any other questions over here? Elliot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at these things here, several quotes here, and one thing I did notice is it started off at 28,000, went up to 33,000, and now it's up to 36,000. But the question I have here is, there was in here, there was mentioning that there was, you're going to have to call an electrician to put in a new line. That building has to have 480 three-phase and at least 600 amps. And we're going to have to call an electrician to put it in another line for what is basically equivalent of a new house, half a new house power requirements. It seems awfully high.
Nope, they're just going to hook up the 3 wires, the electrician will, to the generator.
That cost of the electrician is that, I don't see it in here.
That would be separate.
So you're going to have to come back again for that.
That should be a smaller charge.
We can cover that in our operational budget. For our electricians, we have like an open purchase order for the electricians. We can take care of that. That's going to be a small cost.
So the current UPS, it's got old batteries, but the rest of it is fine? Or are you going to have two totally independent UPSs?
Yep, 2 independent, redundancy. One has 3 bad batteries, and it also has a fried board in it too. So it's completely useless.
One other quick question. When I was working at Verizon, they have a UPS system. Is everything running off the UPS, and the UPS is the primary supply until the power gets lost, and then it runs off the batteries? Is that how you're doing it, or is it switching over?
So we have 2 of them. Each server has 2 powers. One's plugged into each UPS. And since one's down now, they're all just plugged into one UPS. There is a generator there, but if the generator weren't to kick on, we'd have probably about 30 minutes of battery time, and then the whole town would lose its network, fire department would lose.
So it is truly an uninterruptible power supply?
Yeah.
It isn't like it's
It's a
running off
UPS,
the lines
yeah.
and then it switches when you lose power?
Yeah, it's a UPS, yes.
Okay, it runs off the batteries. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Elliot. So to summarize, the total amount needed is $24,000. Thank you. Lauren, do you have a question?
So you have 2, ideally you have 2, correct? Ideally you have 2?
Lauren, can you just get close to the mic, speak nice and loud so everyone can hear you at
All
home?
right.
Thank
Can
you.
you hear me now? Because it's green. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah, we have 2. One
I'm not
is
sure if
broken.
that mic's working.
Right. So is the plan to purchase this? What? It's not working then because I have it on. Jeez, I'm going to buy this stuff.
There's a lot of jokes to be made here.
Okay, let me try this one. Hello? Oh, that's better, see? Okay, there we go. All right, so ideally you'll have two, and then if one goes down, the other one kicks in, and then you'll have a third one now in case anything goes wrong with one of the two?
No, we're trying to get back to having two of them.
So,
Yeah, I
will
think-
you have a backup if this scenario ever happens again, if you put it into the budget going forward every 5 years?
So if we were to get a new one, we would have a brand new one and a used one. So that would give us two, and then we would have to budget for.
But do you know what I'm saying? I'm just curious, so you always
We're
have
going to
one
make
to
sure
replace it.
if the life expectancy is 5 years, then we're going to budget it before the 5 years, so we have a new one.
Okay.
And we replace it. So we're going to be preventative maintenance-wise. We're going to rotate it out before end of life.
Okay, perfect.
And they're pretty big items.
Thank you very much for that, Lauren. Jonna, do you have a question?
Thank you very much, Vaughn. I wanted to ask, to one of the previous members had mentioned about taking the money out of the maintenance budget, and I'm just curious as to what the reasoning is for not doing that. Thank you.
Well, Tony and I are both IT directors on both sides, and there isn't a representative from the school or the town budget. So we know that this is an unforeseen thing, an unbudgeted item, and that's why within those guidelines, we applied for this transfer. I can't speak on the maintenance budget.
I think
don't
essentially
have it in the
because
IT
you
budgets.
didn't budget for this to fail.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sorry, I just meant, like, what would be the reason for not going there? Like, why aren't they here so we could ask that? Or am I not off on the wrong tangent or something, or? Just curious. I mean, I understand that they're not here and you can't speak for them, but I'm asking, like, can't we look into getting it from there? You've got $138,000 odd dollars, so couldn't we go there and get it? Wouldn't that be a better solution?
I don't know what they have in their budget, what they have, upcoming in their budget. And as far as I know, like when I do my budget, I forecast it for the year. All I can speak for is this is an IT item that we need, and it's unbudgeted. So I would love it if you guys would vote this in for us.
It's entirely possible, I don't know, but it's entirely possible that whatever's in that maintenance budget is already planned to be spent on something else. You're welcome. Mark, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Through you. I don't know what to call these, but the LX, the one that's for 22,000. How many modules and batteries are going in that?
I believe it's 3 modules and 4 batteries to give it 12,000 kilowatts.
Okay, because, well, I was reading on this that you can add the 5th module.
You can keep adding on to them.
You can add on after you get the system.
Yeah, you can keep expanding it, yeah.
Okay, so that goes with the next line with the battery module, where you're only doing the 3. You can always buy the 4th one to get up to like 45 minutes, right? Or no?
Yeah, you could buy additional accessories for it, like hardware, yeah, batteries and.
All right. Do you know how much like a single battery is for that, or?
I'd have to try to break it down.
Or is it like, the first, 3-pack is this, you know what I mean? And then
They might just sell it as a package like that too.
as a
How much-
3, that's
yeah.
what I was wondering,
Yeah, as a pack, because there might be 4,000 kilowatts apiece probably with the batteries.
Okay, and the system's the same as your backup that you have now, right?
It looks exactly the same, yeah, same
So
thing.
if you got the
Yeah.
3-pack, you could chuck it in the other one and,
It'll be a 3-year warranty too, if something were to happen, 4 hours response.
all right, sweet, thanks.
All right, thank you for that, Mark. Lisa, you have a question?
I guess I'm concerned here with setting a precedent for this. This is, so I just don't understand why this is an emergency nature. I hear you saying that, right? Okay, so my basic question then is why are we pre-asking for a transfer when there's money available that's unencumbered right now based on Heidi's answers to the email, even though she doesn't give us the exact dollar amount that's unencumbered for items that are potentially non-emergencies that could be tapped before coming here. And then if there's, do you know what I'm saying? That was a 7.1% school budget increase last year. So I hope that expresses my concern better.
I think, and I'm not positive, but I think the reasoning would be because if you spent that money now that's in the maintenance budget, and there are things in the maintenance budget that are foreseen, that's why they were in the maintenance budget, and they spent the money now, they couldn't come back here for unforeseen because they budgeted it, so it would have been foreseen. That would be just my opinion as possible, because I know there's no one here to really answer that. Diane, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
I do, actually, a couple of things. Full disclosure, I do work for the school department. I know both of these people very well. One thing, and I understand Trish wants to put it on there sooner, I would say put it on every 4 years, because you know what happened. This is the 5th year, so that's what happened. The other thing, and I know this, and I don't think it's said already, the reason why they came in front of us now is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, the price of this is going to double December 1st. Is that correct?
Yeah, all three people that gave me the quote were telling me that the new technologies that are coming out and demand on minerals that I have an email from one of the vendors too that it's going to be going up $15,000.
Right.
December 31st.
So instead of a $24,000 request, it might be a $48,000 request in a couple of months if we don't get this now, correct?
Because of the lithium batteries,
Right.
correct, Tony?
Lithium batteries, yeah.
Because it would
Okay.
be lithium batteries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Dave, you have a question? I don't know. Arnie, do you want to go? I know you. Arnie, do you want to ask a question then?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm
Arnie.
not sure how to ask this, but I think.
Make sure you're
how do we
speaking to the mic so
find
everyone
out
can hear
how
you.
much is How do we find out how much is unencumbered in the business? The Biz's school department equal is not here, and we should have the information that how much money is unencumbered in the maintenance budget so that they can cover it. I understand there's planned maintenance, but what happens in an emergency? They've got to have some money for an emergency. God forbid we have a snowstorm and a piece of the roof comes down. They've got to fix that. We have some other emergency that is unforeseen. You can't know that, and you have to have money there for these type of circumstances. And the importance of this, I understand how important this is. I'm just saying they can't just have maintenance in there for foreseen circumstances. There's got to be something for an emergency. And we need to find out that piece of information.
Thank you for that, Arnie.
Thank
Dave?
Thank you, Vaughn. Appreciate that. Thank you for coming. And I know it's difficult to be in front of us because you're always dealing with complexities in the computer industry, not so much on how much money was appropriated and how much is encumbered. I'm sure that's not your realm of expertise. And I do know something about about this. I know that many of us know about batteries and backups. We've dealt with them throughout our lives in one respect or another. I happen to come from an industry that works with UPS batteries and I do it as a service to companies who are trying to maintain servers. Some equipment, it's not as sensitive to fluctuations in power. So there's two things that a battery does. One is that it grooms the power because fluctuations that come in off the street, brownouts, surges, these kind of systems are very, very sensitive. They need to have a steady flow of electricity, so the batteries actually groom the power so it's always steady, so that the computers are always happy. All right, that's one of the things. Then if there is a hard blackout, these batteries completely take over for the role of electricity for the systems until the generator comes on, and then it goes back to kind of acting like normal again. And then the generator's kind of operating until the street power comes back. Here's my concern, okay? This is extraordinary, fine. There's an extraordinary maintenance budget inside the school side. The school has their own, they have a category. It's called maintenance and extraordinary maintenance. There's a line item called extraordinary maintenance for $138,121. It's a source of funding. When you do the math, the entire maintenance budget is about $4 million, give or take. This request you're bringing, and when you do the simple math on a calculator, it's 6,000th of 1% of the entire maintenance budget. And you're coming before the Finance Committee to make this transaction. We have a body of, how many of us are here, to make a transfer for 6,000th of 1% of a budget that's supposed to be responsible for extraordinary problems. The way in which I look at it, this kind of a transfer, and by the way, you know what's unique about the school budget is that you don't need a finance committee to make transfers, because within the $60 million budget, you can move money from one department to another. You know, if you have to use one set of less Chromebooks, or I don't know, I'm making that up. You can take money from any pot of department budget and move it around to make up for 6,000th of 1% of a maintenance budget. That's what's extraordinary to me, is how we're sitting here talking about something that small when it's already baked into your budget. And if you're looking for like, well, we don't know, and it's serious, it's important, because I know how important it is. If it was important, somebody would be here to speak to the unencumbered dollars that are sitting here. And because they're not here, or anybody here from the finance or accounting department, I'm going to basically tell you no to this, and that they can transfer the money from any source they want and come to us when they have the information we need, because they can move that money around. They can come to us for all the months still left within the annual budget for yourselves and say, you know, maybe it's in March when they are actually ready to present some real information to us, not this. This is not the real information that was needed to vet this request.
Thank you
so
for that.
it's a lot to ask for us to delve into something so small on such a large budget that the whole school department has the power to do that. It's a no from me. It's not necessary to come before us to do this.
Okay,
Plain
I'm
and simple.
sorry.
Thank you very much
Mr.
for that,
Laurie,
Dave.
that you feel that way.
Carolyn?
Unfortunately, sorry.
Sorry, thank you. I have two questions and a question and a comment. First of all, what is our Finance Committee reserve amount?
We haven't spent any of it.
Well, how much she asked the question?
I will get that. And what was the second question?
And the second question is more, this is believe the tech department is a joint town school department?
We work together. We have separate budgets, but we work together.
Okay.
That environment over there is a shared resource. So Munis and our file servers are over there. So yeah, as far as we're concerned, we're one.
Right. So I'd like to keep that in mind. I would also like to remind previous speakers, it looks like from the information that was requested from the Assistant Superintendent of Finance, that there is a tech budget that this would likely come under, because it supports the technical systems, and that budget is fully encumbered. And then the maintenance budget, which you were referring to, no matter how much percent, that goes to the coverage of all the buildings, all of the things that people complain about when the schools don't do maintenance. So I think it's kind of facetious on the part of people to say, well, we want people to use, the schools to use this money from the maintenance budget to provide a tech expense, which isn't really covered under the maintenance part of the budget, but then will complain when a school comes before here for a building issue that was not encumbered because of they didn't perform the maintenance. So I'd just like to keep that in mind. And I think at this point, I think we could vote on this, whether or not we agree with, if we agree or don't agree. I think most of us at this point have made up our minds.
Chair, could, Mr. Vaughn, could I
Yes.
say one thing, please?
Yes, you can.
I just
Yes,
wanted to
Trish.
say, I realize there might be something going on here with the political aspect of what budget, but I want to let you know that Biz, our finance director, is at a training, and Heidi's out sick today, right? So we have no representation from the finance department, but we filled this out as a group, and we're just asking for your support. That's all.
Well, thank you very much for that, Trish. I am looking right now, the Finance Committee reserve budgeted amount is $350,000.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And there's $50,000 in the fuel line, too. But obviously, this is not a fuel request. Any other questions, comments on this? Do we have a
Well,
motion?
before moving to the next person, I know that I'm jumping ahead. This isn't political. This is money. That's all it is money. It's all inside school. It's not a department against department. This is school for school. That's what the debate is about. School has money. It has departments within the school. There's hundreds of departments within the school side that they have the power to move money in and out of between school to school to school department. It's not political.
Trish, let me just ask a question here. Is this battery power supply, whatever you call it, used through the municipal and school side?
Yes.
You said something about the fire department or something? The fire department, the police, the schools?
No, we have a separate environment over at the police station that's not tied into the school.
If the battery dies, what happens?
We would lose our network, you would lose your Wi-Fi.
What does that affect? The police, fire, schools, everything?
Yep, the Wi-Fi would affect everybody, yes.
Thank you for that. Do we have a motion here? Carolyn?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for a transfer in the amount of $24,000. Oh,
Chet did the second. Carolyn made the motion. Chet has the second. Any further discussion on this? Jonna?
I was just going to say, I think people are trying to say that if we had the proper information, we wouldn't be in this situation. When the question was asked, like, what's unencumbered, that isn't pointed out, and that's all we were asking for. I'm not trying to be difficult. That's all.
Thank you,
That's-
Jonna. Lisa?
I'd like to make a comment here. I think we as committee members, finance committee members, need to respect each other, and none of us should be speaking for anybody else or suggest anybody else is being facetious or not. This is a serious matter, and to the vice chair's point that the school has within their capability, and they have for as long as they know this battery is down, that they could move money and purchase it immediately. They wouldn't have to come before the Finance Committee. And it has nothing to do with politics or anything of the sort of our hesitancy to do this. This is a bad precedent, and I think I'm not going to repeat what the Vice Chair said. It's a fact. They can move that money around. And that's all I have, and thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Okay, so what do we get? 8 to 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 5. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you so much.
You're
I
very welcome.
apologize for saying the word political. I just mean that as far as the two departments go, we operate as one, and we're just trying to do our job. So I apologize if I offended anybody by saying the word political.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Trish.
Have a good night.
Have
Thank
a
you.
wonderful evening. I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Be back at 5. Okay, well, coming back from recess, calling the meeting back to, I gave him the secret hand signal, yeah, so, and then I counted to 11. So, I mean, hopefully. Yes, exactly. Calling the meeting back to session, and next on the agenda, we have approved minutes of May 15th, 2024.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Diane.
can we take the items out of order? I don't know if there's anybody here for free cash, debt service, or communication with departments for financial information. So can we just withdraw them if there's no people here already, and then just do the minutes? Oh, there is.
Yeah, David asked about putting some of these things on there, so
Okay.
I think he wanted, yeah, I think he just wanted to discuss some of the stuff. So, did you want to go out of order? We can do that, or we can just get to the minutes. Let's stick to this. Approved minutes of May 15, 2024. We had the original minutes that Dolores did.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd
Joel,
like to move to approve the minutes of May 15th, 2024.
as originally received then.
Originally received.
Okay, do we have a second on it? Chet, okay. So Joel made the motion to approve. Chet's the second. May 15. Yeah. Everyone all right with that? Okay. Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions?
I wasn't here.
Oh, you're abstaining?
Up for the May 10th, May 15th.
May
whatever.
15?
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
And Ian, did you want to abstain from that too? Okay.
Can somebody tell me which email it came out in? Because the one I'm reading doesn't have the 15th. So,
I have it dated Monday, November 4th. As minutes.
I've sent him a couple times.
Yeah.
yeah, but the batch I got does not have it, so.
The November 4th email that I have has 8 attachments.
8 attachments.
10 minutes, 9 minutes, 5:15, document 2. Sorry, 5:15 minutes, 7:11, 10:15 minutes, and then the agenda and the transfer request.
Through you, Vaughn, how many
Yes, Lisa.
attachments was, through you, Vaughn, if I may, how many attachments was that, Carolyn? 8, okay.
8, yeah, this is not the first time the minutes have been sent out, but yeah, the most recent where I tried to bundle everything on one email so that it's easy to look for it. There were 8 on there, and that was from November 4th. I try to send the information right.
Yeah, and there's confusion too, because the documents have different file names that look like May 15th and May 15th. Why are there?
Because there was one where John was talking about adding a statement that Dolores sent as kind of a sample. I added that in there.
So you're showing extra,
Yeah, it was just-
extra minutes for?
Right. There was a section that John had mentioned.
Okay.
And then Joel made the motion to approve the original minutes.
Okay.
And then we have Carolyn abstaining from that vote, Ian abstaining from the vote, and everyone else is in favor of that. Yes?
Okay.
You abstain.
All right, thank you.
So let's take the vote again. All in favor? Okay. All opposed? Any abstentions? Carolyn, Jonna, and Ian. There were no no's.
Can I just ask you a quick question, Vaughn, just for clarification?
Yep.
I thought Joel had said, as long as Jonna brings a little statement to you within the next day or two, we can approve it at the next time we do minutes, not the fact that we were, what you just said.
Joel had said at that point to table the minutes.
Table it, that's right.
The motion on that day was to table the minutes.
Yep, that's right, that's
Until,
right.
a future meeting when we had that. Dolores then took that statement that you made like a little screenshot of.
Yep.
And sent it. She put it in there as like, and that's why there's a secondary set of minutes that were attached. I don't know if it's called like item B or whatever it is.
Or an addendum or
And then Joel made the motion to approve the original set of minutes.
Right.
And then the vote passed All yes, except the 3 abstentions.
Okay, so it was tabled then, or
It was, there
Okay.
was a vote that day to table until a future meeting when we got the,
Got it, okay.
that's where we are now.
Okay, perfect,
Okay.
thank you.
You're very welcome. Yes, Arnie?
In the package, we got this modular construction cost estimates with,
That's not part of the minutes, though.
but what was it sent to us for? Is this part of some package that we need to vote on?
No.
What's the purpose of it?
Or why did you receive that?
Yeah. I got this,
It was informational. Jonna had requested some information. I'll just say who requested it because her name's in the actual reply.
Yeah.
Had requested information relevant to something that was stated at a prior Finance Committee meeting. I reached out to the speaker, and that person replied with some information. And then there was also a separate email that was addressed to, there's a letter. It's addressed to the Select Board, the Finance Committee, some other people. I forget who they are. Sorry. And then because it was just the Finance Committee, I just sent it out to the Finance Committee. That's it. It's nothing to do with the minutes. It's nothing we're voting on. It's nothing on the agenda. What was the question, Jonna?
I'm sorry. I asked for the building maintenance, not the modular.
No, that was a separate email. Like I
Oh,
said, there
okay,
were,
it wasn't me. Okay,
there were 2
gotcha.
pieces of information that were sent to the Finance Committee. None of that has to do with anything on the agenda. None of that has to do with any of the minutes. It was just me sending out information. In full transparency, I get it. I send it out. That's all it is. I mean,
could I make another,
is this relevant to the minutes?
point of order, sorry. One of the things that I'd like to, what's the term I'm looking for? Sorry. I'd like to get a sense of meeting, please.
What was the question?
What?
I'd like to get a sense of meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah, since the meeting is just a casual vote that's not formal or binding, it's just, he wants to get a sense of the meeting
This
with a raised
past
show of
Saturday,
hands kind of thing.
This past
Yeah.
Saturday, we went to
Just showing.
school for the GOFA conference, and we saw.
This is not on the agenda, though.
But
No, I think it's relevant when the policies come up.
We're on the
Arnie,
minutes
You want
now.
me
We're
to
going
wait
to
until
stay
Wait till
on.
after the minutes.
We're going to stay on track on the minutes. We're at item 4 on this agenda. The next set of minutes are July 11, 2024.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Joel.
I would like to move that we accept the minutes of July 11th, 2024.
Second.
Carolyn, second. Okay, Joel's made the motion. Carolyn, second. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion on the 7-11 minutes? I think it's July 11th. Yes, 7-11. Okay, motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. That's 12 to 0 to 1. Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Joel.
I would like to move that we accept the minutes of October 9th, 2004.
Okay.
I'm on a
Elliot,
roll.
you're the second on there? Okay, Joel made the motion, Elliot made the second. Any discussion on this? Hearing none. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Ian abstains. 12-0-1. Next item, we have October 10 minutes.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes of October 10th as submitted.
Second.
Chet's the second on that. Who wasn't here?
Beat me by a hair.
You can still second it. Okay, any discussion on October 10 minutes?
Yeah, hang on 1 second, Vaughn.
Yes, Dave.
I just have to find the spot. Hold on. Okay. Article 9, page 3 into 4. Mr. Lurie cautioned that a developer does not make money until the project is complete. And the person that would make the money would be the business that was going into the property after the project was done. And the other issue, there were two. The 2 points, one was about the economic development, and the other one had to do with money being collected and not being done with any policies in place, that it was too premature to be allowing money to come into the town general fund without any policies. The money just shows up in the general fund and it disappears. So that was the second part of that point that I wanted to have included.
Dave, let me just stop you there for a second. Only because when you said it, it sounded very familiar to me.
Yeah.
You said that on the 15th. When we get to the 15th minutes, you're noted specifically in Article 9, saying that. You're looking at the 10th, I'm guessing, but I'm looking at the 15th too, because when you said it, I remember reading this, I remember you saying it.
It looks like I might have said it twice, but it's only representing my point of view in this set of minutes the way that I didn't state it. So what do you want to do with that?
Are you saying you said it on the 10th and then the 15th?
It's showing up, it's not representing my point of view in this set of minutes. I didn't get to the 15th yet.
I think the more discussion was on the 15th than the 10th. I think you were asking the questions and just making comments during the hearing about why we may not want to approve this.
It says, excuse me, through you, Vaughn, it says, Mr. Lurie cautioned. It's not a question, it's a comment, but okay. I'll wait. Let me go back to the 15th before I vote on the 10th.
I'm just thinking you might remember saying it, but your memory might be thinking.
I'd like to look at the 15th, if you don't mind, to see what you're all talking about, because
while you're looking at that up, Dave, my only thing on the 10th, I did happen to see this. Let me see.
yeah, it does represent my point of view twice on the 15th, with both points that I wanted to make, but not on the 10th. So I guess you're saying that I only brought it I don't know, it's confusing to me that it wouldn't be on the day that we were actually vetting the material at a public hearing, but so be it.
Okay. Legally, no. Yeah, we can't. I mean, we're not supposed to close that door. So Dave's going to ask them to speak quietly, I guess. We'll wait for Dave to come back, and then we can. Any other discussion on October 10? Actually, it's October 16th. Sorry, Dave, it's not the 15th. It's the 16th. The file's dated 15. I don't know why it's set up that way, but I didn't rename the files. It's the 16th.
That's fine. If anybody asks, I'll tell them to go to the 16th if they want to know my point of view.
Okay, perfect. Okay, any other discussion on this? 10th. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Ian's abstaining, Diane's abstaining, Chet's abstaining. No, Elliot didn't abstain. Chet abstained, you abstained, and Elliot, are you abstaining from that vote? No. 3 abstained. Yeah, that's what I said. I'm well aware, but thank you. Okay, next we have October 16.
Excuse me, Vaughn. I'm just trying to confirm that. Is that correct, what I just said? I'm trying to confirm that what I said was right. That if you watch it, you don't have to abstain. Is that correct?
People usually do abstain, but
But you don't have to technically if you budget. Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to, but
Okay, thank you.
usually people do. It was all yes, except for 3 abstentions. Whatever that equals. It might have been 10 to 0 to 3. Does that sound about right? Yeah, because it's 13 people minus 3, yeah. October 16, do we have a motion for the minutes of October 16?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of October 16th as submitted.
Yeah?
Yes.
Hey, I didn't name the files. Diane, you have the second on it? Yeah, it's the 16th, but the file is the 15th, but I don't know why. Okay, any discussion on October 16th minutes? Okay, motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Ian? 1201, yes. Okay, great. That's everything.
I think Arnie can be recognized at this point.
Well, let me get to the next item on the agenda first. Next item on the agenda, we have free cash policy. You requested this on here?
Yeah, I was going to defer to Arnie. Did you want to comment, Arnie?
Yes, point of order, please. I want to get a sense of meeting on this. We went to the MMA conference this past Saturday, and we were watching it, and there was a GOFA outline, which outlined what policies and procedures we should be following to be able to meet the requirements of MMA. And what we got was, I happened to pick up this Town of Sharon policy, which is very well written. And what I'd like to find out is get a sense how everyone feels about this, is if we can get together and get a subcommittee or some group together to start putting together some policies financially, similar to what they've done in Sharon. We can get a hold of Mansfield. I believe the town manager said he'd give us a copy of that. And we can use that as outlines to put together a policy which we don't have.
Well, thank you very much for that, Arnie. And we can look into it, but technically speaking, the Finance Committee is not a policy board. I mean, we have a free cash policy, but it's really not a policy. It's an agreement it's a loose agreement.
But could I continue, please?
Sure.
I did a little research on there, and they said one of the functions of finance is to develop financial policy and make recommendations. This is according to general there's no law on it, but according to the MMA and several other organizations, this is what they define as the financial committee. Thank you.
Yes, Carolyn?
I would just, I'm not necessarily sure what the answer is to our policy-making abilities. However, I do know from the research and from materials that have been sent to the Finance Committee, different communities have different powers in their finance committees and different structures of local government. I believe Sharon has an executive secretary and a weak town manager. Stoughton has basically all executive authority that is not in the hands of the school department, and the school committee is in the hands of the Board of Selectmen, with most of it given to the town manager. That's how our charter is written. So I think it's not as simple just because one town does it. Every town's different, and every town's finance committee is different. But, I mean, I am willing to at least have that discussion.
Yes, Lisa?
I just wanted to clarify for myself and for my fellow colleagues here on the committee that I just want to let us all know that we are only ever a recommending body here. And it is our job per our Finance Committee handbook. That's why I hammered on everybody getting it right away. Thank you, Vaughn, for sending it. And as well as on our Finance Committee town website, it is in fact our job to make policy recommendations through to the town meeting on behalf of every taxpayer in this town. So thank you for anyone who's willing to have these very important discussions. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'd just like to make sure people understand there's a difference between making policy recommendations and actual policies.
Totally agree.
Thank you. Joel?
I actually have a question for Mr. Laurie.
Okay.
Dave, you and I talked about this before, but there was a policy manual at one point in time that was contemplated. I know this particular group, over the past couple of years, have talked about it a little bit. And I think you know what some of the status of that policy manual is?
Yes, yeah, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
There was I basically put together a sample policy because I wanted to be able to bring it forward. I brought this to the town manager. He liked the idea. He thought it was perfect for a town to have this, especially when you need to have these foundational policies in order to get positive view from the bond markets. They're on the outside looking in, and if you have these, if you have a 5-year capital plan and you have forecasting, you're going to be in a much better light with those bodies outside of Stoughton making judgments about what kind of town we're running. And I put that statement in, and it got voted on by town meeting as a resolution article. The resolution passed, and then they went, and the town manager went forward, and instead of adopting like Dave Lurie's view of a financial policy statement, he said, why don't we bring it to some people up in Boston at a Collins Center and let them do the polished version. Now, and by the way, if you look at the way that they write, like what is a proper financial policy statement, it's all based on the community. It's not, there's no right and wrong way to do one. There's guidelines that say if you incorporate these principles into your financial policy statement, you get points and credit for doing that. So I incorporated the policies that were being made from the South Shore all the way out to Wilbraham in that part of the state, where they were doing these large ones that were polished 100-page documents that are done by these outsourced bodies like the state, and then others who do it within their town, like Hopkinton. They put together their own. It was a homegrown financial policy statement. That was the model that I used, which was a homegrown look and feel. It had, what was it, maybe 10 or 15 pages to it. It's being developed by the Collins Center. It was promised that we'd have it in September. Then a whole bunch of things, as you know, things happen, right? We had the sunset laws, and we had all these things going on that the finance part of the town, the finance department, couldn't collaborate with the Collins Center to finish doing the finished document, so they pushed it out. I think they said possibly December it would come out. The point is that it's our job to actually make the recommendations that the town looks at and says, this is what the Finance Committee says is important for the town. Let's vet what the Finance Committee said, and let's develop our own policy that we can vote in as a policy. It's very important, and this is something that our previous town accountant said. You know what he said? He said, it's one thing to make a policy, but another thing to work the policy. You need every year to report on how did we do, like a report card. How do we do with our free cash? How do we do with our, our debt and our, percentage to general fund of this category and that? And you do it like a report card, and you report that to the town. But those are the things you could expect. And right now it's with the Collins Center, but we have the obligation as a finance committee to look at policies and to make recommendations about what we think is important for Stoughton. That's our obligation.
Well,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes, Joel.
Okay, I'm not really disagreeing with you, but if a process is underway to actually prepare this manual, and I hope it's not 100 pages, by the way, but take a look at it, I think it's my understanding, I believe for the town of Stoughton, that the select board is the one that's going to have to actually finally approve the policy. Wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
Approve the policy. So maybe what we ought to do is wait until this manual shows up, and then the chairman gets it and sends it to everybody on the committee. They can take a look at it and then find out those areas that they agree or disagree with, and we could make those comments. Could that be an option?
I'll start, and then I'll let Vaughn recognize anyone else on the committee. So it's our responsibility to make sure that whatever policies the town adopts is vetted by this body. Whether the source comes from us or comes from outside, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. But these conversations should start happening because we already understand what has to go into them. We already know. Why aren't we talking about them? Well, we have to wait for some outside source that has nothing to do with whether or not the select board says yes or no to a certain policy. It's our influence over this process that matters, not, they could have like a giant document, but that's not the document that is going to necessarily be recommended by us. So is the select board going to then vote in with this outside body who doesn't know us for Adam instead of what we recommend to the select board instead?
Carolyn, did you have a question on this or comment?
I do. I think I'm a little confused. As I understand, that Finance Committee is a legislative committee. We represent town meeting. We make recommendations to town meeting. I know through the times, because depending upon how the Finance Committee is viewed and our opinions have been considered, have been respected, we may have given advice to the select board or the school committee on certain things, but that's not the same as approving policies or making recommendations on formal recommendations on policies as the select board or the school committee would vote on. I'm not sure how much of that is within the scope of this body. We are, by our charter, we are a standing committee to town meeting, and our job is to make recommendations to town meeting as to policy. So if the town meeting isn't voting on a policy, I don't know what formal recommendation we can make.
Excuse me, Vaughn.
I agree with you, Carolyn. Thank you very much for that.
Excuse me, before recognizing anyone, I just want to read something and then let it go to someone else. Right on our website, we have a page that's called Finance Committee. It goes on to tell everybody what we have to do with our agenda, the members, it lists out the members, appointed members, etc. Then it has something called Committee Objectives, and there's 3 of them. First one has to do with recommending the annual fiscal year budget, which we all know what that's about. The last one is to authorize transfers like we did earlier tonight. And the middle one, the second one, says to ensure that the town has a sound fiscal policy, strong financial management, and proactive fiscal planning. Those are the things that we're trying to talk about right now. Is that what we're going to skip over what we actually tell the world we're doing within this body, but we're actually not supposed to?
Through you, Mr.
Carolyn?
Moderator. Mr. Chair, sorry. Used
Yes,
to it.
Carolyn.
All right. Anyway, what our website says, that's fine. I think we have to be very careful, because if it comes to it, just because it says that we have that power on our website, any court is going to look at what our charter says. That's where our power actually comes from. So if we are a legislative branch, I think if somebody wanted to push an issue, is that we could use our influence to comment to the select board to make a recommendation on a policy, but we could not make a formal recommendation and demand that they consider it or even approve what we recommended, because they are the executive branch and we are the legislative branch.
Yes. Joel, you had mentioned in your discussion about possibly waiting for this multi-page document to show up.
Well,
theoretically, it would show up here.
I don't know if we can make a motion.
No, I'm
on
just
this
saying
or
you had
not.
mentioned it.
Okay, but the way I see it is that if the town is going to the expense to have this particular document being prepared, and by the way, I agree with David, we really need this. I have somehow managed to get my hands on copies of a similar document for Orleans, Montague, Clinton, Uxbridge, Hanson, Dedham, and Yarmouth. Kind of fell into my lap. And I've been reading their policies. One of the reasons that I think that we should be having this type of policy manual is that sometimes, not only bond counsel, but sometimes if there's a grant that the state wants to provide to a community, they'll take a look at the financial policies of that community and then determine if the community is following those policies, and that might be part of the evaluation of whether the grant is approved. And I'm giving you that from some firsthand knowledge. So my personal feeling is that if this is a document that's being prepared, I'd like to think that they have talked to somebody in town before they prepared it. And if they provide this document, I would strongly advocate that the Finance Committee review this document and have a discussion about all of the policies that are shown in that, and make even a motion or an agreement as to whether or not we agree that those policies are in the best interest of the town. But that's how I would do it.
I like that idea, Joel. I like that idea a lot. Lisa?
Did you want to go, Elliot? Did you have something? Okay. So I just want to extend my deep appreciation for my colleague Joel over here for recognizing this needs to be done and discussed. And through you, Vaughn, to a previous speaker, I think I've said numerous times, this Finance Committee is only ever a recommending. We only recommend to the policy makers, which is in fact the Select Board. And they know this is coming. They agree that it needs to be done. So I am deeply appreciative that we have this discussion on the table for free cash. And if I now that it seems like we have a sense of the meeting that people agree that we should be working on this, while we don't need to make a motion or vote on any of this tonight, if somebody wants to wait, I personally feel it's a waste of taxpayer dollars to have an outside entity produce a 100-page report when there's only like a few handful of policies that is in that budgeting 101 document that you were kind enough to send to our fellow colleagues here already.
If what I've heard tonight is correct, and I believe it to be correct, I know this was voted at town meeting, and if it's already in the process of being developed, I mean, to say it's a waste of money if it's already going on.
It's my personal opinion. I was just making a comment there. I'm not going to stop it. I can't stop it. I wasn't suggesting to stop it. So if we could move on and discuss the free cash policy based on the training that some of us here at the committee had last Saturday, it would be the free cash policy that I've been advocating for is that we have, as a policy, to have zero free cash used in the operating budget, but there was another point that I wasn't even aware of until I went to this training, is that when we go to town meeting as town meeting representatives, a best practice, and I know this body and town meeting has been advised of this for decades now, so I'm thrilled that we're discussing this. The point that I wasn't aware of is we have a general stabilization fund, a capital building stabilization fund, and others. And what we should be doing as a best practice at town meeting is we should have set or recommended through this body what a percentage of the budget should be of free cash should actually go into these stabilization funds vote that in before we start spending the millions of dollars on articles. So that would be one free cash policy complete that I would recommend and would like to discuss here. One moment. And the other issue is the debt service, is that the debt within the budget is best practice to have 4 to 6% of debt within the budget, which prevents money. It funds capital projects, and it prevents it from being spent on all other issues, or sucked up, as I said at the last meeting. So, and with a cap of 10%. So I cede for further debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We put money in the stabilization accounts now every year. I don't know the exact amount off the top of my head, but we do this every year. It varies year to year depending on what's available.
We save it at the end of town meeting. At this training, they suggested we do it at the beginning before all the, so it's not what's ever left over goes in, that we have a policy of how much of free cash should actually go into these stabilization funds.
By waiting to the end, I'm just telling you my opinion and the way it's gone on at town meeting. By waiting to the end, sometimes other money becomes available. So if you do it at the beginning and there's money left over at the end, then you have the tendency to just spend that rather than stabilize it.
Okay, all I'm suggesting is that we debate and then discuss preparing a policy of what percentages should be put into these stabilization funds.
We don't
It's all
create-
up for the debate.
We don't create policy, though.
I don't know why everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, why a few of the members of this board keep saying we don't create policy. I have said over and over again, I acknowledge we don't create policy, but it's our job to come up with a policy so that we can recommend a policy. You can't recommend a policy, which is our job, without discussing it and coming up with a policy to recommend. I hope I just made that clear.
Well, thank you very much for that, Lisa. Any other questions or comments on this? Elliot?
I was just going to merely suggest that if you're going to discuss a policies or several policies, that in fact you set aside a meeting just for that on the agenda, rather than stick it in the middle of an agenda of other things that are important. Because I think the policies or thoughts that you're going to come up with are important, and time should be set aside specifically for that purpose.
Well, thank you very much for that, Elliot. Carolyn?
I think I'm confused by what exactly I'm not disagreeing with the idea, I'm just confused. So is the point of this discussion to decide whether we want to explore creating a policy or coming up with a policy? I know personally I do not vote on any policy unless I've read it. So I'm not going to vote on anything regarding any sort of policy now, and I don't think I'm being asked to, but that's why I'm just making that point, all right? I just, I think if there is people that we want to create a policy, and I think, I do think our ability to create policies can also, I think our ability to create, we're not necessarily our ability to create policies, but I do think our ability to make a policy regarding what we recommend to town meeting is different than what we make a policy how how the select board should run the business, because I think those we make recommendations to town meeting. We do have nothing to do with the executive branch of government except out of courtesy and out of respect. So I think there's a difference there as to which types of policies we're talking about. And I think I've seen from what I've heard, people are talking about policies for town meeting and policies for the select board. And I think that, those are two different things. But if we want to have this discussion about policies, could we actually have some policies to discuss? I think at this point, I don't know what else to say other than talking about making policies.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. Dave?
Thank you, Vaughn. I appreciate everybody's input on the topic, because it's I take it very seriously that we do become an active body for this topic, that we tend to just kind of let things happen around us instead of taking it by the horns to do it the right way. And when we go to enough of these training seminars, we learn about the wonderful towns that are doing it the right way, and the outside world looks at them and says they need to get treated very special with the way they're treated with interest rates, with grants, as the previous speaker was mentioning. We should be an excellent town. We shouldn't settle for mediocrity like so many towns. There's very few towns, by the way, that look for excellence in the way they operate. And we should be one of those towns. That's, we have a $130 million budget. When I started in this business, we had a $95 million budget, maybe a little less. And now it's 130 something, probably close to 135 by the time they finish putting the budget together.
Finance committee was like 50.
Yeah, so you know also how fast it grows. Well, we're a mini enterprise right now. That's what we are. So there's a good example. I'll give you a good example of something we should talk about tonight. There was over the summer, and I apologize for the people who were new on the finance committee who weren't here, but there was a pretty good conversation around free cash, and there was a motion put on the table. It was I brought it up, and a lot of people had input as to what it should say and what it shouldn't say. I made friendly amendments to it, and when all was said and done, it was a split vote, almost even, like 8-8, and it failed. And the reason it failed, and I respect the reason why it failed, it's because we were trying to make a motion on something in a vacuum, that we didn't have any input from the other boards and committees, that if I had done that or made the motion about that, I probably would have passed hands down with a majority. And I think that it is a good idea, if everybody's on board, that we start to get a conversation started with the select board and the school committee, and it doesn't have to be the entire joint, meeting. The thing where we're going to have 20 people in the room and too many voices trying to get their word in. It could be just a recommendation for Vaughn, Steve Cavey, Catherine Weiss, to sit down. Maybe they're vice chairs if that makes sense, whatever. But to get that conversation started, because to give everybody some perspective, some of us were around for a while when a previous chair it was just conversation. It wasn't even written down. Said that we need to start getting off of free cash in the operating budget, and we were at the time, I think it was about a couple $1 million or more. And if we get it down by $300,000 a year, and that was when the budget was a lot smaller, that we can maybe, at least show the markets that we're working on it, and we were weaning the dependency from the departments off of free cash. So what is this, like 6 years after the fact, that we just had this verbal gentleman's agreement that started from the finance committee. It started with us, and they liked the idea so much that they adopted it without even writing it down or taking a vote on it. They just automatically, the leadership said, oh yeah, that's right. The finance committee says it's a good idea. Let's just keep doing that. And they did it year over year over year over year, and we've been doing it ever since. And then an interesting thing happened last year where they said, we're going to go to zero. We had such a great outlook on the budget, we can go to zero. Then all of a sudden things took a strange turn in which it's like, oh, not so much. So we went from the guidance that was coming through in like the November timeframe to by the end of December, it got turned upside down on its head, and we had to go right back to the dependency again. So right now they're saying it again, zero free cash dependency. They're doing the same talking track that we heard last year, but because there was no real policy that had to be enforced, it was like, I guess not so much again. Again, we can't really do it. So if we have a conversation at this time of year with the different boards, maybe we could get at least, if nothing take back to our board and say, guys, we tried, it just doesn't make sense this year. We might be able to squeeze an extra 50,000 instead of 300. Maybe whatever comes out of it. But at least I think we get consensus that we need to get that conversation about free cash started, regardless of a Collins Center report, because it's not really necessary, because we already have a policy. We're talking about updating something that's over 6 years old. And that was what I was hoping maybe we can do tonight.
Well, thank you very much for that, Dave. Carolyn?
I'm still not sure exactly what we want to do tonight, and I'm not sure I would feel comfortable doing a consensus vote without having something in writing to think about and look about. I mean, the discussion's been interesting. But I think, I think I don't speak. I wasn't speaking right into the mic. I apologize. The discussion's been interesting, but just because someone has an idea that I think we should talk about this policy with everybody and about the policy that was kind of informally adopted about reducing our dependency on free cash, which I agree with, although I also understand from, there's budget contingencies that you may have to have some flexibility on all these policies. because there's unforeseen circumstances that we all have as well. We're not, but I don't necessarily feel comfortable making recommendations that we go do that without anything in writing and without like an actual plan of who's going to do what in writing, so that we could actually think about it and reflect on it before and after.
Yeah,
So,
it's not a, if you don't mind me
Dave,
interrupting, it's
Dave,
not, through you, Vaughn,
Carolyn's
it's
still
not a,
speak- Carolyn
yeah,
is still
it's
speak-
not a.
Dave,
yeah.
can you let Carolyn finish,
Yeah.
please?
that's all. I mean, that's all. Like, I understand. Like, from what I understand, we were asking like just a sense of the meeting. So my sense of the meeting would be that if you want me to consider doing something more formal, then let's put something in writing with explaining what you want to recommend as a sense of a meeting before I take anything. I don't feel comfortable just sending people to go off and make, random statements on behalf of something that I'm voting for without knowing it. I would like to see something in writing with whatever your plan is, so who's, the people, if you have a plan, maybe you can come up after this discussion with a plan and come up with something in writing to present to us at the next meeting about what you want to actually do.
Well, thank you very much for that, Carolyn. Joel?
Dave?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, there's already a gentleman's agreement type policy called $300,000 reduction. We've had it for 5 to 6 years now, and it's been adopted every year since. So there's a general policy that's not in writing. It never got created. It was never even, I don't even know if the Finance Committee ever voted on a $300,000. It was sort of like everybody sort of agreed that it's a great idea, and it got permeated through all the different parts of the town, and it's been adopted since. So this idea of a motion tonight was only to have a review of what's already there in this vague policy that was just started here and got adopted, and have it looked at to say, is that the right number? Maybe it should be higher, maybe it should be lower, but they're already talking about is going to zero on free cash. That's a very bold free cash policy statement to be said. So I'm talking about interjecting into their conversation about going from $1 million to zero in 1 year, and is that a good idea or not?
Thank you very much for that, Dave. Joel?
I agree with Carolyn. I think that if there are policy recommendations that this group should make, that they should be in writing, they should be transmitted to everybody, they should be part of the open meeting laws. In fact, I would go as far as saying that we might have a, what's the thing? Thank you, a public hearing on it, so that people from the community could come and say, well, this is an interesting thing and this is our opinion on it. And if we want to do that, I'm totally in favor of that, but I think that's the way under the open meeting law that we need to do it.
Thank you very much for that, Joel. Lisa?
So just to get a sense of the meeting, based on what my colleague just said, through you, Vaughn, if we could get a sense that we could vote on setting up at least a date in the near future to have that meeting that Mr. Wolk was just speaking of, would that be amenable to, you're going to have to help me.
The sense that I'm picking up from people here is people wouldn't feel comfortable with that without having anything really to discuss. First of all.
We have the
Second,
budget, it would be based on the budgeting 101 training documents that we sent out.
I understand that. But the sense of the
That's what
meeting
it
that I'm
would be
picking up
about.
is people wouldn't feel comfortable setting a date on something that doesn't exist, first of all. Second of all, we don't set policy. Third of
Okay.
all, I'm going to give everyone the history lesson on that actual gentleman's agreement policy thing.
Okay,
What-
I'm sorry, I wasn't done, Vaughn.
Okay, continue.
Okay, thank you so much. So my point is everyone here got something in writing? It's the 101 budgeting from the Massachusetts Municipal Finance Association. This isn't a Lisa Lyons written policy. This isn't a Dave Laurie. This is from the Massachusetts Municipal Finance Association. It is the gold star of policy making. That's why, so to finish, to my previous speaker's point of wanting something in writing, that's what we're looking to discuss. And I'm asking if we, in the near future, if we don't want to do it tonight, because we did pre-send out that document, if we don't want to do it tonight, can we set a date right now to do that? Because we do have something in writing. And to my previous colleague's point, I would be willing to have the public come in and speak to that. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Lauren, did you have a comment on this?
So what you're saying, Lisa, is to look at that, what you sent out, and then to personalize it, to have a meeting to potentially personalize it to Stoughton?
So through you, Vaughn, if I might, to answer my colleague, Lauren, thank you. So basically, that is, are you okay? That document is the gold standard of what we should be at least recommending to my other colleague, just recommending to our policy-making board, which they have also received that document. And as our board is already discussing, it should be zero free cash in the operating budget. I think as a finance committee that we're very well set up to have that discussion and make that recommendation. And I'm trying to acknowledge here that my colleagues are looking to have that as a public meeting, and I'm just looking to set that date up now. So did that answer your question through you, Vaughn?
Just one more question.
Yes,
So
Lauren.
you want, thank you, you want to put that document and recommend that document. You don't want to talk amongst us to see if we have other things to recommend, but you want that specific document. Is that what you're saying?
Through you, Vaughn, thank you for the question, Lauren, because I do understand what you're saying. So to our other colleague's point, he would like, I'm just trying to hear everybody's concerns and trying to get it all together. So to our previous colleague's point, he would like to have that, he's willing to have that discussion as long as the public is inviting in. And I'm like, I'm amenable to that. And to our other colleague's point is she's just concerned that we're not making the policy. We're setting a recommending policy is how I'm seeing it. Did that answer your question through Vaughn?
Kind of. But so say this all goes forward and we have a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Are we looking to recommend that specific policy?
Well, whatever we would come up at
Or
that
would we
meeting.
come up with our own,
I'm
personalize it to Stoughton?
I'm amenable to whatever comes up. This body, to me, is we should, as colleagues, be debating that. So obviously, I welcome the debate to hear everybody's point of view, because that's how the best policies get made. So I'm amenable to that.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Carolyn?
Through you, Mr. Chair, first of all, I think some of the confusion that's been generated is referring to that gentleman's agreement as a policy. It would, a policy is something that could be enforceable. Anything, if it's not in writing, it's not enforceable. It might be better to refer to it as a practice that was adopted and agreed to informally as opposed to a policy, because you're kind of muddying the waters there and making it more difficult for some of us to follow what you're recommending. And as to the previous speaker, I just looked at the budgeting 101, and I'm not opposed to using that as an idea or whatever else, but I don't think just having a meeting to look, that's a PowerPoint presentation on how to do budgeting. I don't think just having a meeting to talk about adopting a PowerPoint is good, is productive for a whole committee. I think if there's particular recommendations that people want, if you want a policy, I would like to see something written out, not a PowerPoint presentation. I don't consider that a policy. I consider that a presentation. Like, what you want based on it. That I would feel more comfortable about discussing, and I think that type of thing is better than holding, before having something that, before you have a public hearing or any sort of meeting. Perhaps it might be something that a subcommittee may come up with to bring to the committee at a future date, and then have the subcommittee work on something that would create a policy. Just to be honest, having all, 12, 13, 14 of us sit here and debate a policy and try to write one in an open meeting is not going to go well.
I understand, through you, Vaughn, I understand her point, and I'm just so grateful you're willing to have the conversation. If you said you'd set the meeting tomorrow, and I'm not suggesting we have a meeting tomorrow, if you were to say that, I would be able to come up with a policy that we could then discuss. I would get it in writing for you.
Thank you for that, Lisa. I'm going to give everyone a history on the actual, quote, policy the Finance Committee has. It's really just an agreement between us, the school committee, and the select board. And it was not a one-meeting thing years ago. It was hashed out. It was a discussion. Eddie Tronfield is the one who kind of brought it up. He went to the school committee, he went to the schools, he went to the select board, he went and said, hey, look, what if, this? And it originally started out with, like, let's zero it from, I forget how many millions of dollars we were shoveling into the budget at the time. It was a lot of money.
You would use all the free cash.
Yes, thank you. It was all the free cash into the budget. So it was an agreement. It was not a policy. It's not a binding policy. The select board could say, we don't want to listen to that anymore, and there's really nothing that anybody could do about it. It was a gentleman's agreement, I guess, is what Dave referred to it as. It's an agreement that everyone was on board with, which is why everyone has followed it, which is why I spoke against pulling the carpet out from underneath it a few months back. Because once you do that, the other people who agreed in good faith years ago might, Dave, let me finish the history.
I'm just raising my hand.
The other people might then say, we don't want to stay on board with this anymore. And that's kind of what it was years ago. He went and sat with the school committee, sat with the select board, sat with the town manager, sat with the superintendent of schools, Dr. Rizzi. He did all this, talked about all that, and I think it's great that he did that. We are getting there. This town is getting off free cash. It's taking a while, but all good things take a while, I suppose. We're getting there little by little. As far as all this policy discussion, we don't really create policy. But to Joel's point, he had mentioned earlier that I guess some policy is being created somewhere, and I will reach out to the select board chair and I will ask, where are we on that policy? So that, because if they're going to come up with a policy tomorrow or whatever, and we get it, we can look at that and we can talk about that. If there's a policy being created, and I know that Dave had an article a few years ago. Was it 2 years ago, Dave? 2 years ago. That put that idea in motion. Town meeting said, we agree with this. Finance committee voted. Actually, Finance committee very, very rarely votes on petitioned articles. But Dave had that petitioned article, and Finance committee said, you know what, Dave, we're going to vote on this. We actually, if you remember, Dave, we actually voted on that, and everyone on Finance committee knows we usually just refer to town meeting. That case, we actually voted on that. And then town meeting agreed, said, yes, we need a policy. The select board said, okay, we're going to get the Collins Center, whoever it was, to come up with something. I will check with the select board chair. I will ask, hey, I know a couple of years ago we talked about the Collins Center thing or whatever. Where are we on that? And I'll get an answer. And then if they say, hey, we got one coming out tomorrow, if they have one, I'll get it. I'll send it out to the committee. We can look at it. We can talk about it. Does that sound like a reasonable? Yes, Lisa.
Through you, during a select board meeting that was already discussed and answered, they said it was delayed, as Dave said earlier in the meeting, that it's delayed till November. But now is the time to set something. I mean, it can always be revised based on the Collins, but the Collins is going to, their information is based on the Massachusetts Municipal Finance Association.
Yeah, those people.
Thank you.
I will ask. I know that if they're already creating a policy, I will ask them, where are we on it? And we'll get to the bottom of it. I mean, I understand the committee's concerned about looking at a policy, and if they're in the midst of doing it, and you said November, December, it's November now.
It's
I mean,
December, they said, but.
I'll ask.
Can I-
Either way, I will ask where we are on that. Yes, Dave?
Well, first of all, thank you for at least going so far as to say, I will go and talk to. That's a beautiful thing to hear to me. I'm elated about hearing that. At the same time, it's just, we had a debate in the July timeframe in which we came very close to passing a policy in writing. Everybody had it in writing. It was retyped and then voted, and eventually, and it got split. And the error that I had in getting it just over the finish line was the fact that it was done in a vacuum. There was no collaboration done with the other bodies. So we're not talking about making a policy motion. We're talking about just getting a consensus on this body to say, can Vaughn go talk to the other, both select board and schools, I think would be a good idea, because they talk about free cash a lot over there. I listen to their meetings. They care about that stuff. So I highly recommend that they're included. In that, we're now talking about Vaughn going there, which is what my initial statement was. Not to make a vote on policy, but just get a conversation started. They're talking about going to zero for the second time in a year, from $1 million. We talked about that. It's like $1.1 million. And they're talking about going to zero. Is that a policy? Going to zero? We were told it was only having to go down 300,000. It's now almost quadruple that number, which, in other words, instead of waiting 3 years to get to zero, they wanted to do it in 1 year.
Well, if the unofficial policy gentleman's agreement is at 1.7 and they're doing, but
They're
I'm
saying now, forget the policy, I want to go to zero. Is that okay? Is that okay with the
guess we'll
finance?
find out.
Is it okay with the finance committee
Yes,
that they
we'll
go to
find
zero?
out. Carolyn?
I was just, never mind. I think I would like to, at this point for this discussion, make a motion to have the chair approach the select board to find out what the status of that policy is and report back to us.
Can I make a friendly amendment to that?
Sure.
And include the vice chair with the chair? That's how it's generally done, 2 and 2, chair and vice chair.
I was going to contact the chair anyway, like I already said.
All right.
I mean,
So, because I think, other than that, I think.
Second. Second.
Can I make a
Point-
comment? Because I've been
order.
trying to.
yes,
for the
Diane.
last- Okay, first of all, I like having the deposit to the stabilization fund. This is how long I've been waiting to say this. Last, we would never have gotten the $850,000 into that stabilization fund if we had voted $300,000 at the beginning. That's my first. Second, we have no idea how much free cash we're going to get. No idea. I don't know when we're going to know. Budget is in the process now. It's usually supposed to be done by the end of December. So if we want to turn around and say, instead of 300,000, we want to do 25% off free cash, because they're never going to go to zero. It's just not going to happen. But if we give them a percentage and say, you know what, you got $4 million this year, we want you to take 25% right off that and put that aside. That's something I think they can live with, because as Vaughn said, it was supposed to go to zero last year. It didn't, and all but $850,000 of that free cash was spent. I think going to them reasonably, because I do remember when Ed went, and it was a recommendation. He recommended to
it's
the...
unenforceable policy. It's a
unenforceable
It's not
policy,
even
but
really
he
a policy.
went as a recommendation to take $300,000 right off the top of free cash. They agreed gentlemanly, and whatchamacallit, and it's been ever since. I think if we start, I don't want to say fooling around, not the right thing, but to come up with a little bit better policy, maybe we raise it to $500,000. Maybe we raise it to $750,000. I don't think raising it so high or trying to make a policy out of theirs is going to get the results we want. Maybe that's what I want to say.
Through you,
Thanks.
Vaughn, to
Yes,
address
Lisa.
Diane's concern. So I'm not sure you're aware the chair of the select board said we have more revenues coming in than expenses going out to alleviate your.
Lisa, I'm sorry. I have been a town meeting member for over 30 years. Trust me, I've heard all of the stories, all of the things. Unless I see it in black and white, I honestly just don't
That's what we're
believe that
trying
they're
to
going
do, get something in black and
And that's
white.
what I mean. If we want to raise the amount that they're taking, I think that would be a great way to go. However, I think we need to come in with either a fixed amount or a percentage of, that way,
Well, we're not that
to me, it
far
would
off.
be, well, we don't even know how much free cash is
But-
going to be.
Through you, Vaughn, that's what we're trying to do here tonight, is to send Vaughn, our chair, and Dave, our vice chair, to have discussions with the policymakers so that we can work together as a town on behalf of all the taxpayers. So I think we're all on this, I think we're saying the same thing. We just want to take a vote so they can go have a discussion, so we can hear the results of that discussion.
I
Hopefully-
don't even think we need a vote for that, do we?
I already said
Oh,
I
there
was
is
going
a-
to contact the
Right.
chair of the
I would
select board to
just-
ask
I
him for
did.
where we are on the Collins
Well,
Center. I
well,
already
we have
said
a
I'm gonna do
motion and
that.
a second on the
I mean, the
floor.
motion was to go to find out and report back to us, which was what you were already going to do anyway.
So
That
I
was the
think we
intent
should
of it.
take that vote.
And again, the
So, I mean,
last-
if we want to take the vote or not, I mean, you're going
Right.
to do it anyway, but I think as a way to resolve this discussion for tonight, I made the motion as a way, I think that is something to find out what's going on with it and come back and let us know is something reasonable we can do now. I think all the other stuff that we're talking about is, has to depend upon what's going on. I would say, as somebody who's had a lot of experience both this town meeting and on the school committee about budgeting, you may say, I'm going to set a directive right now of trying to budget and use no free cash.
Right.
And then you're going to see what your revenues actually come out with in January and February and have to change that. So whatever's being discussed in the budgeting process now, I would take with a grain of salt and not worry about until we actually have a budget that's been submitted to us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
They
Carolyn.
also,
Mark?
just the one last thing, they also have to have their budgets all done by the end of December, so time is of the essence.
The school budget has to be done by the end of
Yes.
December by charter.
Right.
Then the municipal budget will be starting in January, and eventually they make their ways to us. So I think until those budgets are submitted, till there's cherry sheets, till there's revenue statements, till we actually know the numbers, making a prediction of how much free cash we should or shouldn't use at this point is just way too premature.
Thank you, Carolyn. Mark?
Yeah, I was looking over the agenda again, and on the agenda for 5 and 6, it doesn't say votes may be taken, and due to the people in our audience in our town, I think we should not be voting on anything at all, and going by just the recommendation of our chairman of looking into the information and not take a vote at all. That's my opinion. It's not on there, and if it was there, people wouldn't have shown up.
I'll say it publicly. I will contact the chair of the select board tomorrow, and I will ask where we are on the financial policy that we were told the Collins Center was working on.
No,
That's
that's
not
not what I'm
acceptable.
looking for.
I'm not allowed to do that, Dave?
No, that's fine that you're doing that, but that's not what I'm looking for. They're already using a gentleman's agreement to start with 300,000 and went to $1 million instead to bring it to zero. They're already carving out the FY26 budget with zero free cash dependency. The Collins Center report has nothing to do with what the town is able to do in the FY26 budget. It's a high-level document that's a guiding principle for the town to follow these policies. So we need a very granular, very specific discussion around free cash only, not the 100-page PDF that we're eventually going to get in December, which is going to be way too late to have a free cash discussion. They're already talking about zero, and I know that the schools are probably scratching their head right now saying, how on earth are they going to get to zero? But then again, we heard that last year, so maybe going from $1 million to a zero isn't really something to worry about, because we managed to get the free cash back in anyway. That's why we have to talk to them about what is going on. We need to understand why it's fluctuating all over the place, but everybody seems to always land at 300,000. And why is it 300,000 6 years later when our budget is tens of millions of dollars bigger than it was when we first started at 300,000? We need a very specific discussion with the select board and the schools and the finance committee to have a conversation started and bring it back to those bodies to say, hey, by the way, this is what's going on. This is what we could really afford to do. And by the way, you don't just wait until the revenue shows up to build your budget. You get ahead of it with the policies. You get ahead of it with guardrails on the revenue projections. You don't wait until the revenue shows up in House 2, which is way after the budget's done. So you really, I'm not trying to make like an argument about it, but you do the policies and the guardrails before you set the budget so that when you start to build the budget based on realistic and conservative estimates, you don't really have to sweat House 2 in knowing whether or not you have enough money. So you really do need these policies and guardrails now, not later. That's why it's important now.
Carolyn?
I would just like to explain my comment. Budget guardrails and everything else may be, I don't have anything against them. I am just saying our role on the budget doesn't start until we come to it. We make recommendations and we can give advice and we give feedback and everything else, but that feedback, and from my experience in government, that feedback is taken out of respect, and it's only and our respect is only as, it's like a gentleman's agreement, all right? It's honored as long as we are deemed worthy by those boards to get that respect. If we start making demands, we lose that respect. It's all of a, it's not, none of this is a policy. This is all of a, it's all of a political dance of any sort of organization has politics. I'm not taking, and I think we need to be careful about how we produce the, how we proceed here. I think having Vaughn find out what is going on with the status right now is a reasonable step. This was asked, this whole discussion started to ask for a consensus of the committee. I am comfortable with Vaughn doing that. I am comfortable finding out what's going on. I am not comfortable about making more substantial decisions about policies without anything in writing and without any additional information. I understand, Dave, what you're talking about and having the guardrails and everything else in place, but I don't think that's something we just do at a meeting with nothing in writing and without bringing in all the other stakeholders that are, involved in that type of decision. So if that is something that you would like to do, I think we need to go through the process of starting to ask what's going on and then go from there as a committee.
To you, Vaughn, I'm not looking for any demands. I'm asking what on earth is going on with the free cash question, not just the Collins report. What is going on? They're talking about going to zero for the second year in a row from over $1 million. Why, when we have a policy that lands at 300,000, what is going on? Where does that guidance come from? What is going to be the real number we should try to make sure everybody's controlling their budgets against, so we can report back to us and say, here's what's going on, folks. Here's the State of the Union address based on what's really going on with the projected revenues and everything else. And by the way, free cash used to be available. It was certified just this time of year because we had sunk over $1 million into Munis, and it used to be pretty easy to get one. It's not so easy anymore, but I'm hoping that we get one sooner than even special town meeting. That's just me. That's just me. But I want to know where we're going with the fluctuations of free cash dependency when we're told that we have to be very careful about the 300,000 number and then having it just discarded altogether to go all the way down to zero from $1 million.
Through you, Vaughn.
Carolyn?
Is these types of questions, is this something that individuals can find out without using their role on the Finance Committee or say they're speaking for the committee?
Okay, Vaughn, through you, if I might have a moment.
Hang on. So you're asking, can an individual just contact?
Yeah, so as I understand, what Dave has several questions about how the budget process is undergoing, all right? Is he free to go to the Board of Selectmen and ask them as a citizen, as a town meeting member?
You mean show up at the little select board
Yeah.
public thing? I
Okay.
guess.
Well,
No, they can't, citizen comments, you can make a comment, but
All
there's
right.
no
They
there's no
create the
debate.
budget. We, as a legislative body, we look at the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the role of the finance committee. We don't
And
create
to
the
make policy. It's also to make recommending policy for the bond council for all the reasons that they say in that budgeting 101. That's finance committee's job. So I don't think, through you, Vaughn, I don't think we're that far off. I think if we, as a finance committee, can send
We
Vaughn-
cannot create enforceable policy. Right now, we have
I
an
don't,
agreement.
excuse
We
me,
should take the
Vaughn,
win on
Vaughn,
this. I mean,
excuse me. No one is suggesting that. All we're suggesting is that we send you as the chair and Dave as the vice chair to have a gentleman's discussion between the school committee and the select board, who are the policy makers, to say, hey, we as the finance committee would love to work with you for best practices for the taxpayers of this town. Can we have a discussion?
that was
That's
not
it.
my motion. I just want to make it clear. I understand that's what you may want to do.
Do you have?
My
You have a motion,
My
Carolyn?
motion that I had made earlier, which I think I withdrew, was because Vaughn said he would do it. I said at this point, if Vaughn could go and find out what the status of the Collins report and their financial policies are, and come back to us, so at least we
that
have
abdic-
information.
Excuse me, Vaughn, that
hang on.
abdicates our responsibility.
Carolyn was still
All right.
speaking.
Okay, but
I'm not abdicating or not abdicating or making any decision as to what policies we should or should not make, because I'm not going to make any decision about any opinion about any policies we should or should not make if we don't have anything in writing. So since right now, the motion that was made by Mr. Lurie a few years ago for town meeting, the article, the resolution was to have the town work to develop a financial policy, right? Which is what they contracted out with the Collins Center to do. So at this point, before we plan what to do next, I would like to know what's going on with that policy.
as a step, through you, Vaughn.
Yes, I will ask that. I've
And
already
after
publicly
that,
said I will
without
ask that.
knowing that and
Okay,
what's
but-
going on there, I'm not prepared to make any, at least for myself, any more consensus beyond that. That's what this whole
Okay,
discussion
I
was.
think,
Thank you.
Vaughn,
Thank-
I
thank you.
understand
We're
her
not-
point.
We're not going to go back and forth on
No,
this.
we're not, but I do want to add to that, I agree with the previous speaker.
Okay.
That should be a step, but we can walk and chew gum at the same time. At the same
Thank you for
time.
that, Lisa.
Thank you. At the same time as asking that question, we can also, as you and Dave are together with those two policy-making boards, can have a gentleman's discussion to work collaboratively toward a policy for the benefit of the taxpayers. I do not understand for the life of me what I'm sensing as resistance to protecting the taxpayers by working together. It is the Finance Committee's job, and we're doing it in a collaborative, we're suggesting to do it in a collaborative manner for the benefit of every single taxpayer in this town. So to get a sense of the meeting, does anybody object to what I just suggested?
I do.
Okay, and does anybody, to get a sense of the meeting, agree with what I just said? Okay, so, I mean,
There's your sense of the meeting.
okay, so I get a sense of the meeting, so I would like to make a motion, if it's possible.
Hang on.
She just said
she
she
withdrew
withdrew it, but
Withdrew it
I...
because,
just
Vaughn's-
point of order.
Yes, Diane.
I believe Mr. Struck said that we have nothing next to this that says votes may be taken on any of these articles.
That's correct.
So I would like to just recommend that we do not take any motions on 5, 6, 7.
I think that's why that, along with Vaughn's statements, why I withdrew
I
my
believe that's
motion.
why Ms. Campbell
Thank you very
took
much
her,
Can we then make a motion to set the next finance committee where votes may be taken?
No.
So we're not working to protect the taxpayers, is what I'm hearing.
Again,
Yes, Cynthia.
Well, oh my.
I would like to wait until Vaughn comes back to us, and I'm sure if he said he's going to go and speak to the powers that be, that that as soon as he comes back, then we can make a recommendation for a meeting. Right now, I think it would be too hard to do that.
My concern with that, through you, Vaughn, is that timing is of the essence, given that these policies and guardrails should be in place before the budget gets presented. So what I hear some members of this board are advocating for is to have no policy, no guardrails, to basically not do our job as a
I
finance
don't think
committee.
any members advocated for that, Lisa. Cynthia, do you have something to add to this?
Thank you. I did think I was recognized earlier. Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. There are 4 standing committees in the charter. I am the chair of municipal operations. I've also been a member of town meeting for 43 years, but I attended before that. Representing the vast audience, this has been being discussed now repeatedly. The same points are being made repeatedly for more than an hour and a half. There has to be some endpoint.
Thank you, Cynthia.
To make an
Okay.
endpoint, I'd like to make an endpoint.
I think Cynthia just did.
No, I'm making one right now. I'd like to get recognized to make one, which is the free cash is being discussed as a guidance to the people who are setting their budgets right now against a policy that's limited to 300, and you're just going to ask whether or not the Collins report's going to come out on time in December. That's not enough for me.
Well, thank you for that, Dave.
I want a substantive discussion, and it should include the schools, not just a phone call to the chairman of the select board. It's much more grave than that. We need to actually get a handle on it, and it's not good enough to take a 5 or 6 year old gentleman's agreement that's been carried through. So it's more than tradition. You only need 3 times to make tradition, by the way. We're at least at 5, so we got more than tradition going for us at 300,000. But because it fluctuates around the way it does, and it could just be tossed out and land wherever it does, it requires a serious discussion with both bodies. And it's not
thank
enough
you
to
very
just
much
ask
for that,
about
Dave.
the Collins Center.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Well, are you going to do that is my question.
We're going to go to the next item on the agenda, Dave.
You can't, so I'm not asking for a motion. I'm asking you a question directly to you.
If
When
what?
you make your phone call, is it going to be just to the select board chair on just, hey, what's the status on the Collins Center report? Or are you going to actually ask a substantive question about what is going
You
on with
implying
free
that
cash?
I would contact members of other boards and not be a substantial discussion?
No, you said here, I'll make sure everybody knows when the Collins Center report is done, because I'm going to check in on it. I'm not asking for just that. That's interesting information, because it was due back in September, and it would have been pretty valuable going into a special town meeting in which they're going to actually talk about a $113 million South School.
Yes, Carolyn.
I have a question. I guess a point of order at this point.
Yes, Carolyn.
If no votes can be taken, all right, how could we as a committee authorize the chair of the committee to go enter into substantial discussions with 2
didn't make a motion.
executive board orders without making a motion and taking a vote?
I didn't make a motion.
But what you're asking to do is, do you think the chair should be do you think
I'm asking the chair if in his conversation he's going to get to an understanding of what's going on with free cash. It's a reasonable question to ask. I'm not making a motion.
No,
I'm
you
saying,
were
hey, I'm on the
asking-
phone about, we're not giving a motion about, hey, what's the status on the Collins Center?
As I understood your request, you're not happy with just finding out the information about the what's the status of the Collins report, center project, whatever. Fine. But what you just asked the chair of our committee to do was, without any formal authorization from this committee, go open up substantial negotiations and discussion regarding how to make a free cash policy for this upcoming budget without any motion. And do you think that is that an appropriate use of behavior?
He
power
volunteered.
here?
He volunteered after hearing everybody chime in.
He
He
volunteered.
volunteered to ask about the Collins Center report, and I asked him to go deeper just because everybody else wanted to know about the policy statement. He volunteered that, so I'm saying I wanted to go a step further, just like everybody else asked to go, at least as far as the Collins Center report.
And I'm
why
just-
is that? Why is that outside?
I am
out
just
of order?
asking
How is that out of order?
because he's not just informational purposes. From what I understand you were saying, you were asking him to begin discussions about what is, following certain policies and creating policies. I'm not necessarily saying that is a good idea or a bad idea. I'm just questioning whether or not it is appropriate at this time, since we can't take any votes on it. And can the chair do that without a vote of the whole committee?
The chair.
The previous chair did, that it's up to him to decide to do it without any discussion here.
Excuse me, Vaughn, through
Thank you, Carolyn.
Through you.
Lauren?
Okay, so there's multiple things going on. I thought we wanted something in writing so we could meet at some point to go over what we see in writing and have a debate about it. Vaughn offered to make the call to find out where the Collins document was, to potentially that would be the document that we would be debating on. So maybe you don't think he's going to say what you want him to say, but he's a very intelligent man, and we could start there with that. I don't understand why we've gone all over the place.
Why can't we have
want-
the chair and vice chair? Through you,
Thank you
Vaughn.
very much, Lauren.
Can we go back to where Chet? Remember what Chet said in the beginning? I'd like to go back to that. But at least it's a starting point, and then it can be communication. We have email. We could talk to each other. Like, he could tell everybody what's going on with what he came up with the discussion. And then at some point, we could set up a meeting to discuss. If there's no Collins report, maybe we could discuss, okay, let's put something in writing, and then we can discuss that. But it doesn't have to go like this.
Thank you, Lauren. What you're saying makes perfect sense.
So can we get a date?
Could you wait to be recognized, please?
Okay, I'm trying to get your attention.
We are not going to get a date. We can't set a date for the next meeting.
So
The answer is no.
I'm just trying to understand why is there so much hesitancy to do our job, which is to try to collaborate and get a policy for the benefit of the taxpayers? That's that's my one question. My second question is, can we as a body at least agree that you go with the vice chair and be able to discuss these issues? Do you object to that?
Thank you very much for your concerns, Lisa. Arnie, do you have a question?
Actually, thank you. As memory serves me, I remember in one of the select board meetings, Tom Coulter mentioned that the Collins report is on hold.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to Communications Department for Financial Information. Joel?
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I floated the recommendation, Vaughn, that as part of the budget team that the town puts together and putting together the budget, maybe they should have a member of the Finance Committee be part of that team. And that was not accepted. However, in reading the financial programs from other towns, I found at least 2 towns that actually do that. When they put a budget team together, one of the members of the budget team is a member of the Finance Committee. And when that happens, that person is able to hear right away where certain things are coming from, has a better understanding of what things are going to be doing and how they're moving forward, and can act as, in some cases, an advocate for the Finance Committee and making sure that the proper information is available in order to make that type of idea. So I just wanted to bring the idea up. We can't vote on it tonight, but if it's something that you think is worthwhile, I would request that you put it on as a article in a future meeting, and if you'd like, I'll even write it up so that people can see what I'm talking about, and they'll be able to have a discussion on it.
And
Well,
votes-
thank you
and
very
vo-
much
and
for that,
votes
Joel.
And votes may
Dave.
be taken.
Thank you, Dave. Diane?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So are you asking for us to go back to the way it was before, where we had little subcommittees all over the place? Okay, all right. Because
No.
I know that it
I know
just
what
didn't
you're
work
thinking
well.
of, Diane, but no.
Yeah, didn't work well. We couldn't get people together, and it was really
Well,
tough. Yeah, I know, yeah.
Okay, but
I was with the DPW, it was
in
tough.
other communities, apparently, this
Right.
works out quite well.
Right.
Thank you for that, Joel. Yeah, communication departments for financial information. As it stands now, I mean, people have been, they send me emails, I'll just send it off to the departments, and that's what we've been doing. I mean, we don't really have any control over the departments anyway, so. Yes, Lisa.
So I just have I don't know if it's probably called a procedure question. So when can we make motions and take votes? How is it that we can't, as a body, make a motion to send some of our members to have a discussion and then come back and report to the committee? So it's not like we're voting on an article or something like that, which I could understand, but this is, so I'm looking for clarification on this, and I'll ask the Mass lawyer that I know tomorrow the question.
Okay.
As well. But in the meantime, if you could share with me, Dave, maybe I see your
Vaughn,
hand up.
I could help with this. I've been on the Finance Committee for 8 years. Vaughn has also, and I believe Diane has been also on for 8 years. And we've
Thank
never,
you.
there's never
Thank
been-
you for saying that, Dave, because that was the last thing I was going to say tonight, that you better look at the three of us, because you're going to replace us, all three of us, next year.
Yeah, next year. But just so you know, traditionally, people made motions all the time. They didn't need a piece of paper that said they may be taken. They might not be taken. You know, we made motions all the time. They
So
just
in-
they
so in
happened, and
light
there
of
was
that-
never only in this realm of operating as a finance committee
Well,
have we been slapped down whenever we wanted to try to make a motion.
So
It's the
can we
only
make
time.
can I attempt to make a motion
It's,
to
and, well,
send?
I do want to caveat that. It is the prerogative of the chair to accept motions.
Okay.
He can say no way
Okay, well,
if
I
he
wanna-
wants to.
I get it.
He has
I
that
just,
prerogative.
Thank
I
you,
just
Dave, for
want to
recognizing
ask
that.
then our chair if I can make a motion to send yourself and the vice chair, Dave, to engage in a conversation with the school committee and the select board to start a policy discussion and then come back to this committee. Can I make that motion?
No.
Okay,
No.
it's on the record. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's not listed here. The committee doesn't feel comfortable with that. I mean,
Does it raise open meeting, does it raise open meeting laws?
I would think it could. That's just my opinion. I mean,
I'm not sure whether or not I would agree with that interpretation. However, I do know that there are people that have been very particular about the open meeting law, and I would like to,
I would
better
rather
to err on the side of caution.
I would feel better about being on the side of caution on that. I mean, just to vote on things we're not saying we're going to vote on.
It's been a tradition, and tradition is tradition, and board chairs are board chairs, and attitudes change from
And
one year to the next.
Well,
based
some are
on-
working for the
based-
taxpayers and some are
leadership-
not.
Thank you very
leadership-
much for that, Lisa.
Leadership will affect.
Thank you very much for that.
I make a
how
motion
you-
to
how you do
adjourn.
things.
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Diane. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. This meeting's adjourned. Have a wonderful evening.